In headlines, as the fallout within the coalition escalates, opposition leader Joseph Harmon has admitted to an agreement between the leaders on the vice chairman position in regions 4 and 7, but blames miscommunication.
It was between the coalition agreement between the APNU and the AFC.
Charlestown residents complain of persons dumping human feces into an unoccupied house lot, resulting in a terrible stench in the community. Students ungraded from 11 of 20 schools get results after CXC review. Vice President Dr. Bharat Jagdeo says Guyanese are rebelling against the COVID-19 restrictions. The Georgetown Public Hospital prepares for crisis if nurses go on strike. And in sport, with the National Schools Championship unlikely this year, the decade-old discussion resumes about a new window for the event. With the news, I'm Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for joining us. We start off by telling you that Christopher House, a 54-year-old resident of Region 4, appeared before Chief Magistrate Anne McLennan, charged with the rape of a woman who allegedly stabbed him in the scrotum. House was not required to plead to the charge, which alleged that he engaged in sexual penetration with the victim without her consent in April 5, 2020. The Chief Magistrate released House on $100,000 bail and ordered that he keep away from the victim. He was also ordered to report to the Rheinfeld police station once fortnightly. The case is adjourned until October 19. Now, residents of Drysdale Street, Charlestown, are pleading with authorities to investigate the dumping of feces and garbage in an unoccupied lot. The owners of the lot reside overseas, but a relative told Newsroom that for months now, persons have been defecating in plastic bags and dumping it into the yard. Isnella Patwa reports.
A number of neighbors living on Drysdale Street in Charlestown, Georgetown, are hoping the authorities can soon put a stop to the illegal dumping of waste in an enclosed, unoccupied house lot. The residents believe that persons living in the area do not have a washroom and have been dumping waste on the property. For months now, the stench has been affecting other residents who are now fearful for their health. A relative who is the caretaker of the property, Ricky Bacchus, did not wish to be on camera, but explained what has been happening over the last few months.
They had a house here, and the house broke down. Somebody carried away the house. And what we find happening is that people just put in the feces in the bag and keep throwing it in the yard. They had a lot of mess in a bag in the corner there. If you look, they got set a black bag with stuff inside. And
Who is doing this?
well, it gotta be neighbors been doing it. People from the road wouldn't come and throw stuff here.
According to Bacchus, numerous reports were made to the police and the mayor and city council, but to date, nothing substantial was ever done.
We complained to the police, and I think the police come and warn them. The council come, but nothing has been done as yet. The council just come and look at it. You know, the health people come and nothing doing.
How long has this been happening?
Well, if you look, it's happening a long time, a very long time this happening. We would like them to stop doing whatever they're doing. You know, it's not nice, it's not healthy. They got some respect for other neighbors. Neighbors might be able to speak out about this because they might be scared of whatever.
The owners of the land live in the United States but plan to return to Guyana. Bacchus said they have begun clearing the land to rebuild and hopes that the issue does not continue. The lot has been occupied for years. Reporting for the Newsroom, I am Isana Lopato.
Now, admitting that there was an agreement between the leaders of the APNU AFC and the vice chairman positions in regions 4 and 7, opposition leader Joseph Harmon said he was investigating a possible breakdown in communication. Harmon said that the lapse in communication of the decision taken by leader of the Alliance for Change, the AFC, Kamraj Ramjatan, and leader of the APNU, that's David Granger, may have led to the agreement not being honored. He said the People's National Congress Reform Central Executive Member, Aubrey Norton, was responsible for communicating the decision to the coalition's Region 4 councillors. Harmon said an investigation is still ongoing, but could not say if at the end of it that the Vice Chairman Samuel Sandy election will be reversed.
The agreement was between the coalition agreement between the APNU and the AFC, and that the requirement for communication of that agreement to the parties on the ground was the responsibility of the two elements in that agreement. So it was, in fact, a requirement that the councillors on the ground be advised about this agreement. My understanding is that there was might have been some breakdown in communication, but that is a matter which is being investigated as well. The question of reversing will arise out of the investigation which was completed and the discussion which will take place between the chairman of the APNU and the leader of the Alliance for Change. I believe that that meeting will take place very shortly. In the meantime, I am advised that the National Executive Committee of the Alliance for Change, that they have announced a meeting on Sunday where these matters will be dealt with and where the question of Mr. Patterson's resignation or intention to resign will be dealt with. As at this point in time, I, as the leader of the opposition, have no application from Mr. Patterson with respect to him resigning his position as a member of parliament. I can say to you that Mr. Patterson continues to function as such. As recent as yesterday, we were in a meeting where he's contributed significantly. As of this morning also, I did receive some advice from him on a matter which I'd asked him to look at. So Mr. Patterson remains a very valued member of our parliamentary team. With respect to his position in the AFC, I think that his resignation certainly will be a loss to the leadership of that body, but I have seen a letter which suggests that he will remain active in the party and will continue to give his support. But I trust that at the NEC, when they meet, that they are able to convince him that this course of action might need to be reviewed and that we can continue to benefit from his tremendous skill and talent as a member of parliament and as a professional person.
The newly appointed Chief Executive Officer of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, Sherwin Greaves, has assured that the cost of house lots will be reduced. He told the newsroom in an invited comment that Guyanese may soon be paying less than 100,000 Guyanese dollars for some categories of low-income lots. This, he said, is in keeping with the government's promise to make the cost for acquiring a house lot affordable. Greaves reminded that President Irfaan Ali, who is a former Minister of Housing himself, has made a promise to make house lots as cheap as possible.
Well, the President has made a promise that he will try to meet the needs of the citizens and make the house lots them as cheap as possible. I don't want to give you figures here today, but what I can promise, it will be at a very, very affordable cost.
Under 100,000?
Probably. Some maybe.
Would that affordable cost constitute a reduction in prices currently being paid?
Definitely. Well, that is why I mentioned the budget, because funds are put aside in the budget to ensure the infrastructure work is done. All the access roads, all the access bridges, water, lights, everything will be in place. We will not issue house lots without those things being put in place.
When the newsroom returns, students ungraded from 11 of 20 schools get results after CXC review, and Vice President Dr. Bharat Jagdeo says Guyanese are rebelling against the COVID-19 restrictions. This is the newsroom. Now, less than 2 hours after recording its 83rd COVID-19 death, 2 more persons have died from the disease, taking the death toll to 85, which represents the 3rd death for the first day in the month of October and 9th for the week. The Ministry of Health late on Thursday night reported that 2 males aged 73 and 69 died while receiving care at a medical facility. They are both from Region 4. Earlier Thursday evening, a 46-year-old man died while receiving care. September was recorded the deadliest month for COVID-19 in Guyana, with 41 deaths for the month. Meanwhile, Guyana on Friday recorded 39 more COVID-19 cases, taking the overall known cases to 2,968, of which 15 persons are in the intensive care unit. Of the 39 new cases, Region 1 recorded 11, Region 3 recorded 9, Region 4 16, Region 6 2, Region 9 1, There are 165 persons in institutional isolation and 927 persons in home isolation. The number of recovered cases is at 1,776, while there are 281 persons in institutional quarantine. The total deaths is at 85. To date, 14,520 persons have been tested for the disease. We tell you now that the Ministry of Education on Friday revealed that 11 of 20 schools in Guyana that reported ungraded results at this year's CSEC and CAPE exams have now been graded after a review was done by the Caribbean Examination Council, CXC. Minister of Education Priya Manikjan in a statement said that a total of 20 schools in 15 CSEC and CAPE subject areas received ungraded results. The ministry stated that CXC has committed to providing an update on the outstanding 9 schools at the earliest possible time. The ministry further stated that a number of factors contributed to students receiving ungraded results, and the ministry has immediately begun to revert to pre-existing systems, which will be strengthened to prevent a reoccurrence. In relation to the unsatisfactory results in the CSEC examination, a total of 24 schools indicated unsatisfactory performance in 20 subjects. Meanwhile, 6 schools submitted requests for a review of unsatisfactory results in 7 CAPE subject areas. CXC has since undertaken to provide an update at the earliest possible time. The government has come up against criticism from the parliamentary opposition over moves taken to reopen the economy that had been shut down due to COVID-19. Opposition leader Joseph Harman has called the government out on its decision to shorten the curfew time and reopen the airports. Kurt Campbell reports.
Opposition leader and former chief executive officer of the COVID-19 task force, Joseph Harman, on Friday pushed back against the government's decision to reduce the hours of curfew and reopen Guyana's airports as the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths continued to rise. Harman, while speaking during a virtual press conference, said the move by government is reckless as he asked for reconsideration of the latest version to the COVID-19 measures and guidelines.
They again offered to lend our significant skills in addressing this national health issue. The following day, the government, in what can only be described as a reckless move, announced, among other measures, the reduction in curfew hours from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. The airport was announced to be reopened to receive commercial traffic in this month of October, I believe the 11th of October. These measures are announced at a time when we are seeing daily increases in the number of confirmed cases and death from the virus.
At a cabinet meeting on Wednesday, the government took a decision to reduce the 12-hour curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. The curfew now stands at 9 p.m. to 4 a.m., 5 hours less than what was previously in place. The government also announced that it intends to reopen the country's 2 international airports on October 12. The airports have been closed since March 2020. The reopening could allow for scheduled commercial flights, and all persons entering Guyana have to test negative before they are allowed to board a flight. But Harman believes that this is contrary to professional advice. He said it seems these new measures are geared towards satisfying business interests over the health of people.
This response from government appears contrary to professional advice and places the need to satisfy business interests over the health of our people. In this environment, we urge every Guyanese to take their individual safety measures seriously. Wear a mask in public and even at workplaces or venues where social distancing rules are violated. Secondly, practice safe social distancing. Thirdly, avoid too much physical contact with persons. Fourthly, wash your hands regularly and use a hand sanitizer where you cannot wash your hands regularly. It is advisable that you get your own sanitizer, as we are advised that in some offices and public places, the hand sanitizers are being diluted. Advise your friends, advise your neighbors to observe these rules, observe the rules for safety and enforcement of the COVID-19 laws as announced by the government.
Director General of the Civil Aviation Authority, Egbert Field, had said that he would support the reopening of the airport with the COVID-19 guidelines in place that would allow for strict testing before and upon arrival. He had expressed confidence that it can be done safely. The government also announced on Thursday that it would deploy a total of 500 army ranks to assist the police in enforcing the COVID measures in place, which remain stern on gatherings of large groups of persons. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom.
Meanwhile, the Vice President, Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, on Friday called on the opposition not to politicize the government's management of the COVID-19 situation and its push to strike a balance between protecting citizens and ensuring the economy remains steadfast. Jagdeo said the government is doing its best in this regard and continues to plead with citizens to adhere to the restrictions, but noted that there is a rebellion from the public. The Vice President said the spike in COVID-19 cases and deaths is not only a responsibility to be shared by the government alone, but it must be shared by all stakeholders, including citizens. He observed that although citizens are well aware of the seriousness of the virus, they still continue to fight regulations, particularly on social distancing, and are seen congregating in large numbers and hosting that should be private parties. In defending the move to reduce the curfew hours and reopen the airports, Jagdeo said that the government could not uphold the rigid method of enforcement forever.
So you know that consciously, but do you have an alternative to go back to a rigid shutdown where nothing happens in this country? And a lot of people who were willing at the beginning to accept that do not want to accept it now. There is a rebellion out there. People know how deadly the virus is and it can kill you. And yet you go down the seawall. We saw the seawall on the beaches. People have private parties. They can't do it. They can't go to the bars. There are hundreds of private parties, no mask going on. And people are going to get infected if that happens. And then the numbers will climb. And if more people get infected, a few more will die, unfortunately. That's the reality. And we shouldn't really, if we wish we couldn't have any death. But how do you prevent that? Do you go back to rigid enforcement again, locking up everybody who comes on the seawall or who drives their vehicle at night beyond the curfew? Or you raid people's home and go and shut down all the private parties? How many policing capability will we have for the country? And that's why we are saying we want to do soft enforcement, talking to people, urging them, more advocacy, saying it's your responsibility too.
Still ahead on the newsroom, the Georgetown Public Hospital prepares for crisis if nurses go on strike. This is the newsroom. The Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation is gearing up for a crisis should nurses go on strike for better pay and risk allowance. In a notice dated October 2 and sent to all heads of department, the Director of Medical and Professional Services, Dr. Fawcett Jeffrey, listed some important measures that will be required in anticipation of the strike action, including reducing services to only emergencies, suspending all outpatient activities, discharge patients, eliminate visitation, and provide home care plan for patients who are not severely ill. Dr. Jeffrey further instructed heads of department to identify the personnel who will be willing to work and facilitate medical care, rearrange staff members who are willing to provide essential services to the inpatients that may have been unfortunately inconvenienced by the strike actions. It was also noted that in the absence of nurses in clinic areas, the wards or operating room, doctors will be asked to assist with basic interventions like medication dispensation, vital signs, and dressings on patients. Earlier this week, nurses in Georgetown continued protest action for better working conditions, better pay, and risk allowances. Similar protests were held last week in Linden, the West Bank, and the west coast of Demerara, New Amsterdam in Region 6, and Suddy in Region 2. Vice President Bharat Jagdeo on Friday poured cold water on fresh calls for the government to renegotiate and ultimately change the production agreement entered into between ExxonMobil and the former APNU AFC government for the Stabroek block. Kurt Campbell reports.
Vice President Bharat Jagdeo told reporters on Friday that it was simply wishful thinking that the PPP government could move to change the agreement now, but noted that they are committed to reviewing the agreement with the intent to get more out of it, as he made it clear that changes cannot be made at this point. The Vice President was speaking days after the People's Progressive Party went ahead with issuing a license for the Payara development project located in the Stabroek block. He said while the PPP government delayed issuing the license as it intensely reviewed the terms of the permit, it could not make any changes to the production agreement which governs all developments in the Stabroek block. The former APNU AFC government had granted the license for the Liza Phase 1 and 2, while the PPP earlier this week approved the license for the Payara field development. And Jagdeo says a comparison of the two permits would show that there are major improvements in the Payara license when compared to Liza license.
So these are just some. We have unit agreement. Now the last agreement, you would see that we remove royalty from this one here. It was in Liza because Liza had royalty in it, but it says the royalty will be subjected to the petroleum agreement. So it just reinforces what is in the petroleum agreement rather than negotiate something different. So that is not there. And local content. The last Lisa had some issues on local content, but it never had a firm commitment in the license that Exxon must comply with the government of Guyana local content policy. That is part of this license too. So I can go on to point out the several substantive differences here. These are major differences.
Jagdeo pointed out that routine flaring is prohibited in the Payara permit, while in the Liza permit, flaring was permitted because there was no prohibition. There is also a fine for flaring if it is done. Additionally, under the Liza permit, there were no cost estimates and details, while under the Payara agreement, ExxonMobil has to submit to the government within 90 days the development cost and the operating cost for the Payara project. Jagdeo also pointed out that there is a space now for safety and compliance audits, where ExxonMobil will give the government US $2 million to conduct these independent audits. ExxonMobil also has strict directions on local content.
None of this was in the Liza license. So there was no prohibition and there was no system of fine. Secondly, the cost estimates. Now, under Liza, there was no requirement for Exxon to provide the cost estimates and the details of it. Under this agreement, within 90 days from the date of signing of the license, they have to give to the government of Guyana the development costs and the operating costs for the Payara project. So now we can see the costs, they would submit it, and then we can assess whether those costs are reasonable.
The Vice President also responded to statements by Opposition Leader Joseph Harmon, who earlier on Friday said that the license issued by the PPP government was similar to the one issued by the APNU AFC. Jagdeo accused him of being ill-informed and pointed out that the production agreement was already signed and the government still has to operate within the confines of that agreement once it issues license for the Stabroek block. Jagdeo said the PPP government could not change the financial terms, as some persons have suggested. Neither could it refuse to issue the license as a leverage for changing the production agreement. Kurt Campbell.
Now, numerous complaints from farmers about imported products competing with local produce on the market have resulted in the Guyana Marketing Corporation being revamped to prioritize markets for local farmers. The Minister of Agriculture, Zulfikar Mustafa, met with the farmers in Region 3 on Thursday, where the concerns were raised. Isnel Patwa reports.
Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa kick-started Agriculture Month with a 2-day visit to farmers in Region 3 to listen to their concerns and find ways to resolve them. Among the top priorities was poor water supply for cash crop farmers, deplorable roads to farmlands, and the competition in local markets with imported products such as cabbage and sweet peppers. The minister assured the farmers that the Ghana Marketing Corporation is now tasked with finding markets for local farmers.
The GMC, we're changing the policy of the GMC, and the GMC is there to facilitate and find market for farmers' produce. So you all have a representative directly sitting in the new GMC board of directors. So he will have to make a kind of representation too for farmers here.
The minister said the aim is to develop farmers in every way possible, which will further improve the lives of all citizens, but noted that the farmers and the government need to work together to achieve this goal.
The one with the roads, I will ask we have budget money in this year's budget to do farm to market road, or what you call it, all-weather road that you all wanted. So I will see if we have any funds. If not, we will have to do those work next year in 2021 budget. But I will ask the chairman of the NDC with that group that will form here this afternoon to ensure that they submit to us projects that can go into next year's 2021 budget so that we can target those work and do it completed next year. We have 3 months more to go, and we'll try to see the emergency and we'll prioritize the work in the community.
The minister was also accompanied by officers from the National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute, NARI, National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, and the Ghana Livestock Development Authority on the visit with the farmers. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanela Patwo.
When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather and bridge reports along with sport. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We're starting off by telling you that with the likelihood of this year's National Schools Championship being cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the discussion has once again resurfaced about whether the event should be held during a different period of the year. According to the Athletics Association of Guyana President Aubrey Hudson, hosting it in the regular November window is not ideal. But the Guyana Teachers Union President Mark Light indicated that a factor to consider are the major examinations that occur earlier in the year, the period that has for years been touted as the next possible option. Akin Green reached out to the key officials to have their say.
It has been a long-standing tradition in Guyana that nationals, the Mark U Schools track and field competition, be held in November window. However, some coaches and officials have a different opinion on when is the best period for the event to be held, so athletes' potential can be maximized. According to Hudson, February-March is the ideal period, given the curve the games is held Easter weekend.
Nationals coming when it do come does not present an ideal situation for athletics in Guyana. We understand the dynamics of the whole school cycle and what else happens in the calendar. But for us in track and field, having nationals at the time it is normally held in Guyana is out of sync with what is happening in the rest of the world. And I honestly feel that once there's a strong will to have it moved, then it can be shifted to keep in line with what happens, as I said, externally of Guyana, which really and truly affects what happens here. And when you have these events coming up in June, July, in the summer months, in the Northern Hemisphere, and us having a major championship as late as November going into December, does not do well in terms of having the child compete at a high level at that time and then come back to compete at that same high level again June and July.
However, GTU President Mark Light indicated a major consideration is how it could impact the preparation for national and regional examinations. Light further felt consultations can be done for it to be held early in the year, so as to factor in athletes being in peak for overseas competition and still have enough time to prepare for exams.
That's something to be considered, but I know for sure that that national don't just happen in November. National has a build up in terms of starting in September and culminating towards the end of November. So we have to look and see how we can factor in the competition at the primary level, at the school level, at the inter-house level, then the inter-school, then the inter-zone, and then still have nationals at the earlier time in January. So again, those are some discussions that can take place, and you know, but it's not something we can actually discuss as to whether it can happen now at this point in time.
With regards to the issue of examinations, Hudson felt that should not be a factor for the move not happening.
The nation's children are basically in a mode of trying to prepare for either CXC or common entrance. But my humble view is that if that work is put in during the calendar year, if the education system is structured properly, and we don't leave everything for the last moment, then that should not affect track and field.
Newsroom Sport reached out to colleagues in Barbados who explained their equivalent to Guyana's nationals starts in December from the various in-house or school level and concludes in mid-March in time for CRIF Games. For the newsroom, Akim Green.
Cricket news now. President of the Barbados Cricket Board, Hilbert Foster, has reiterated the call for senior inter-county cricket to return when the cricket impasse is resolved. In an exclusive interview with Newsroom recently, Foster reasoned that the major competition to pick national teams should feature the best players. At the senior level, the traditional 3-team inter-county competition has been replaced by an 8-team franchise-based competition. Launched in 2016, the Jaguars Franchise League, as it is called, features 4 teams from Demerara, 3 from Berbice and 1 from Essequibo. The then president of the Guyana Cricket Board, Drew Bahadur, had told the gathering of media operatives and cricketers that the realization of the 3-day league was part of a holistic plan to develop cricket at the local level. Foster, though, is a big fan of the inter-county championship, noting that the best players from the 3 counties should be vying for spots on the national team.
I am not a strong believer of this franchise league. It doesn't make sense to make a cup of Kool-Aid with the correct amount of Kool-Aid and sugar, and then you throw in a gallon of water. It spoils the Kool-Aid, right? Our highest level of cricket should be the top 36 players in the country, 12 in a team or 13 in a team, 39 players. To have 100 and something players. I've seen people playing franchise cricket who doesn't even deserve to be in a 4-division team.
Foster touched on the prestige of the inter-county tournament, noting that players felt a sense of pride to be recognized amongst the best cricketers of the county.
I could tell you clearly is that we have a lot of players, including some from my club, some from Albion, who used to be rushing back home from England, from the States, from Canada in time for the inter-county. Because once you make a Barbies team, you're virtually closer to making a national senior team. But this franchise league, it was a total waste of time. I mean, yes, you have a lot of players. You give umpires and match referees and so the opportunity to make money. But it's just a waste of time. You have some men with bigger belly than me playing this cricket. And you have men who I believe if I play in a match that I might edge 2 fours to the boundary and score 8.
Foster is also keen on the return of matches to Berbice, noting that many players, especially the age group cricketers, have not been afforded the opportunity to display their skills in familiar conditions and in front of family and friends.
There is no other place in Guyana that is mad about cricket like us. None. Essequibo, Demerara, Barbician, you put 2 red hands to play cricket, they're going to have people. And like Jonathan Case, he has never had the privilege of playing in the county at home, where his mother and his father and his relatives, his friends, his classmates could turn up 5 minutes away from their home and see a game of cricket. So we want to see the county return to Barbies and perhaps even return to Essequibo.
Football news now. The Guyana Football Federation remains hopeful it can organize some on-field activities before the end of the year, with the annual season opening Super 16 Cup being the target. Local football has been put on hold due to the COVID-19 measures, which put restrictions on crowding and employed a method of social distancing. The GFF president, Wayne Ford, in an invited comment said, and I quote, "As daunting as it may appear at this time, we remain hopeful that there will be an opportunity to have some level of on-field activities before the curtain comes down on 2020. The GFF Super 16 Cup is officially the year-end staple, and that will not change. The tournament has been growing steadily, and we have made significant budgetary allocations for the 2021 version." End quote. Ford added that there must be flexibility with the format, its duration, participation, and other aspects, given the unique scenario created by COVID-19. He said, and I quote, "The anticipated shortfall in sponsorship demands that the entire football family comes together as a show of solidarity and support for the game." End quote. The Federation has maintained that it will await approval from the National COVID-19 Task Force before it proceeds with resumption of competitive football and training sessions. On the new COVID-19 measures, valid for October 1 to 31, there are restrictions on hosting, attending, or visiting sporting events. Meanwhile, the Golden Jaguars, Guyana's senior national men's team, are down for a busy opening half of 2021 with the FIFA World Cup qualification and participation in the CONCACAF Gold Cup on the horizon. The World Cup qualifiers, initially slated for October-November 2020, have been shifted to March 2021, while the Gold Cup preliminaries are set for July. Reporting for Newsroom, I'm Avinash Ramzan. Now for some IPL news. Sunrisers Hyderabad moved from 7th to 4th on the points table after a hard-fought 7-run win over Chennai Super Kings, who remained bottom of the table. Sunrisers batted first and posted 164 for 5, thanks largely to the young pair Priyam Garg with 51 not out and Abhishek Sharma with 31 leading the way after the third top order stumbled. Manish Pandey made 29 and David Warner 28. Deepak Chahar took 2 for 31. In reply, Chennai Super Kings made 157 for 5 to lose their third match on the trot. Ravindra Jadeja made 50 and Mahindra Singh Dhoni an unbeaten 47. Bowling for Sunrisers, Tangarasu Natarajan took 2 for 43. Tomorrow is the first doubleheader of IPL 2020 with the Royal Challengers Bangalore playing Rajasthan Royals at 6 hours and Delhi Capitals up against Kolkata Knight Riders at 10 hours. Now, Los Angeles Lakers will look to go 2-0 up, while Miami Heat will look to level the series when Game 2 of the NBA Finals is played tonight. Anthony Davis and LeBron James combined for 59 points on Wednesday night as Lakers won 116-98 to take Game 1, with Jimmy Butler getting 23 for an injury-hit Heat. After the game, James said he was not satisfied with an opening win. The Lakers are overwhelming favorites to land a record equaling 17th NBA championship title 10 years after their last finals appearance. Heat could potentially miss some key players through injury in Game 2, making their chances of leveling the series a tough proposition. Game time is 21 hours and you can view the action live on eNetworks. And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, newsroom.gy, our Facebook page and Instagram. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Be safe. See you next week.